Before we dive into today's episode, I have something truly special to share. Next September, I'll be leading an intimate women's retreat through the south of France and northern Italy, and you're invited. Picture this: mornings exploring the colorful markets of the French Riviera, afternoons sipping wine, and a hotel view with golden Mediterranean sunsets. Whether you love photography, food, or just want to reconnect with your playful creative self, this trip is designed for you. Spots are limited, so if all this sounds like your kind of adventure, please visit tourwithabsolutely.com and look for the tour France and Italy with Crystal. You can also send me a message or check out the show notes. Hey guys, my name's Crystal Kenny, and I'm in love with creating. All things artistic and imagination involved. I'm an American girl who chased her creative dreams all the way to Paris, France, making a living using photography. This podcast takes you inside the stories of all the artsy folks I've met along the way and gives you that extra push to discover your creative gifts. The desire to create is deeply inside each and every one of us, and I give you the tools and inspiration to find a new way of living a more creative life. This is La Vie Creative, the podcast. Today on the show, I interview Alexia Leachman. Alexia is going to teach us how to get rid of our head trash. She specializes in helping people get rid of all the things that are blocking them, their anxieties, their imposter syndrome, all those little micro traumas that lead us to be blocking ourselves, self-sabotaging. We're going to learn how to get rid of those today. I think you guys are going to love this episode. So welcome to the show, Alexia. How are you today?
I'm doing well, apart from the croaky voice. All good, Crystal?
Yeah, I think we're sharing that today. It's that time of year. But I just want to jump into what brought you to France and where you're originally from.
Well, I'm originally from Wales, in Cardiff, and we left the UK just before lockdown happened, and to escape the UK to come to France and start our adventure searching for somewhere to live in France. So, excuse me, it's been it was a bit of a bumpy ride as we arrived, because then lockdown happened soon after. But now we finally settled in the south in Provence, near Uzès.
And what a time to move. I feel for all the people that moved like right before the pandemic, because you're arriving to a new place, a new culture, and then you're dealing with the pandemic on top of everything else.
Yeah, it was not easy. And mainly because what I didn't anticipate was France being so difficult to find rental accommodation. And I just presumed that we could just easily just find somewhere to rent. But actually, that wasn't the case. And then, of course, I've brought 2 children with me. So they were then starting school in France with totally new language. I mean, I speak French, but they don't. And so they were learning a new language with everyone with masks on. So that made it very, very difficult for them. And then they were sent home for 4 months. So I then had to homeschool in French. So it wasn't an easy time, that's for sure. But we're here now and we're really happy.
Yeah, and time has just flown by since then. I can't believe it's already been 4 years since all that craziness. It's like a black hole in everybody's life.
Yeah, no, totally. It was a very interesting time, especially in a new country where we're trying to navigate the new systems, healthcare systems, which obviously were basically shut down, and schools, and moving and looking for accommodation. We ended up having to find somewhere in the south that we couldn't even visit because we had to pick it online because we were stuck at home. And so we ended up moving to an area that we had never visited and didn't know at all, but ended up being absolutely wonderful. And this is where we've landed. But we didn't choose to live where we are. It was the universe that brought us here through the lockdown and not being able to actually visit anywhere physically. So it did make for an interesting adventure, but we're happy that it turned out that way.
And during that time, you actually founded your website, Clear Your Head Trash. Tell us more about that. It sounded like you had a lot of head trash to get rid of yourself during that time.
Oh my goodness, I had so much head trash. I mean, the thing is, when I left the UK, I was dealing with suddenly, have I made the right decision? And we moved to a rural setting, so I was feeling very isolated and alone. And so I was stuck at home because I didn't know anywhere. I was in a village that had nobody. I couldn't see any humans. It was lots of animals, but not very humans. And so I was feeling very cut off. And so that forced me to do a lot of healing and a lot of inner work to help me to handle all that. And actually, that was a very good preparation for lockdown. Those are all the things that people were suffering with in lockdown. So when lockdown came around, I felt fine. I was like, hang on, I've worked on all this. This is all good. I'm totally fine with being isolated, alone, disconnected, stuck at home, not be able to go anywhere. And so I was able to kind of approach lockdown and the whole pandemic with a very different attitude than maybe I would have done if I'd not had the opportunity to do that kind of healing in advance of the lockdowns happening.
You were totally prepped, one could say,
Yeah,
for that
totally.
whole situation. And so talk about some of the resources that helped you as you were figuring out how to do self-healing, how to help yourself.
Well, the story started when I got pregnant a while ago, maybe 14 years ago now, where I had tokophobia, which is a fear of childbirth and pregnancy, which is not very well known and yet can affect up to 30% of women. So very widespread, and yet hardly anyone's heard about it. And so this forced me to do my own personal healing because I was facing, a due date which doesn't move, and I was terrified and wanted a C-section. I wanted to be knocked out cold, really, which is not really possible. And so that really brought me to my knees and forced me to kind of figure out a way of getting rid of these fears. So it was in the depths of my despair of pregnancy that I developed my healing modality and was able then to test it on myself rigorously. And then I tested it again for my second pregnancy. And so since then, I've been working with a lot of women to help them get over their pregnancy fears. And I've also, during lockdown, when I was trying to move away from my pregnancy business, where I had a lot of business owners coming to me asking me if my fear clearance method worked on business fears. So yes, it did, because I've been using it on myself, for the last 10 plus years. So really the tools I've been using is a modality that I've developed, and I've been refining it and further developing it over the years. And so as a result of that, I've created lots of self-healing products, lots of resources for people online to be able to do their own healing. And that is what I turn to that's always what I turn to in my time of need. And it's what I turned to when I was suffering with the arrival into France and the feelings of isolation, loneliness that I was dealing with that really caught me by surprise, because I'm half French, so I really shouldn't have felt that in my head, but I absolutely did. So, so that I use head trash clearance, which is what the modality is now known as. And so the Clear Your Head Trash website is full of stuff like I use on myself for other people to do the self-healing that they might want to deal with whatever stresses life is throwing at them.
And we all know that life constantly has its ups and downs and stresses. And I'm sure the techniques you teach are needed in a variety of ways. I mean, like you said, it started with a fear of pregnancy, of giving birth, and then it's just kind of moved into these other arenas. And what are some of the common things that you see with your clientele facing? Like, what are some of the common fears? Obviously, after childbirth, like there's probably some things you see often.
Well, there are consistent themes that I see time and time again. And that might be within the women that are facing pregnancy and birth. But the thing is, those fears that they're facing, the most common at least, are human fears. So the most common I come across are fear of losing control, fear of vulnerability, fear of change, fear of uncertainty. But these aren't just women who are pregnant facing this. This is everybody faces these fears, actually. And certainly when we entered into the pandemic, there was a lot of fear of uncertainty, a lot of fear of change, because suddenly things were changing in a way that we'd never seen before. So there are some fundamental fears that we all struggle with that are actually at the root of a lot of people's anxiety, which is this fear of uncertainty, fear of change. And because things are changing so much in our world, this can be very unsettling for a lot of people. And once you can deal with once you can deal with change, once you can deal with uncertainty, you're much better equipped to deal with anything else. And the thing is that when people have a fear of change or a fear of uncertainty, this can actually act as a block to healing. Because obviously when you heal, you kind of deep down want to change. But if you have a fear of change, then you could be sabotaging yourself before you're even out the gate. So this can really act like, you can imagine that you're kind of pressing on the accelerator and the brake at the same time, and you don't move forward, and whatever you're trying isn't working. So oftentimes dealing with the fear of uncertainty and change can be a really good starting point for anybody who really wants to bring about some significant change in their life, because they could be putting the brakes on a very subconscious level without even realizing it.
It sounds like a vicious circle in a lot of ways. Like you said, like we need to change to heal, but we're afraid to change, which is so common for a lot of people, like you said.
Yeah, it sure is. But once you have awareness of some of this stuff, you can start to deal with it. You can start to tackle it. And with head trash clearance, it works very, very quickly. So you could be dealing with your fear of change, getting rid of that in about an hour, and then you move on to the next one. And it's all about peeling those layers down and becoming more and more aware as to what it is that you're facing, what it is that's standing in your way, and what's blocking you from moving forward. And I would encourage anybody, if they're listening to this thinking, well, that just sounds a bit too easy for me. Well, it is as easy as that. And but it does require some commitment and some dedication, just working through it. But start by simply writing out a list of everything that really annoys the hell out of you, or all of your fears, or all of the things that you're worried about. Wherever you might want to start, these are really good starting points, because then you can work methodically through your list using something like my tool, which you can get in my book, Clear Your Head Trash. And then you can start reducing the anxiety that you feel day to day. And so that means that suddenly what might seem overwhelming at first, and where you have a lot of anxiety, suddenly if you can't start working through that slowly, and you start noticing the shifts and you're feeling better, that can really motivate you to continuing working through your list. And then before you know it, within a few weeks, you can really notice a massive difference in how you're feeling. And so, yes, what might seem overwhelming at first, what might seem like you're just spinning around in circles, you can unpick that, unravel it, and slowly work through it so that you make progress. So it's about not losing heart at the beginning and just committing to it, and it's just putting one foot in front of the other. And then before you know it, you'll start noticing significant shifts in your life.
And I think that's always the hardest part, right? Is getting started, because it feels overwhelming. It feels like, oh, well, how am I going to figure this out? And obviously you've designed all these wonderful programs to help people with that. But what is like the top 3 things, like, for example, someone could do today to get started with dealing with their problems? Like you said, starting that list is probably number 1. But what are some other things that people can do, just like getting started today, to face those fears?
Yeah, I think starting with a list is very, very important, because that's self-awareness. A lot of people don't realize what are their fears below the surface. So when I started my pregnancy journey, just writing all of that out was really helpful. When I work with women, a lot of them say, well, I'm just scared of pregnancy. And it's like, well, what is it about pregnancy that you're scared of? So that question, what is it about whatever, what is it about your new job that scares you? What is it about, whatever it might be that is worrying you? If you ask yourself the question, what is it about that worries me? That helps you to uncover the next layer of what is going on. And so once you have this self-awareness, then you can start doing something about that, right? So, but the other thing is not to take things so personally. A lot of people find that they do take things, there are things that happen to all of us, but a lot of people take them personally. And so the minute you take it personally, that can really bring out a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, a lot of stress in you. But when you realize that a lot of us struggle with these same things, it's not you that's being targeted with this thing. It's just human life in, the conditions, the environment, the times that we're in. So it's not about you. It's just about how you choose to respond to what's going on. And the minute you kind of detach slightly from what is going on, that can really give you the breathing space you need to not feel the weight of it anymore in the same way. Because then when you realize it's not you, you just happen to be experiencing something that loads of other people are also experiencing, that can really help you to kind of move through that. So that would be one thing, is I would really encourage people to think about where are they taking things personally, and how can they create a little bit of distance or a little bit of detachment so that doesn't weigh as heavy for them. Does that make sense?
That makes complete sense. And like you said, we're all facing issues every day. It's not like the universe is choosing to pick on you. Like, that is life. We have high highs and low lows. And like you said, just not taking it personally and knowing that you're not alone.
Yeah. And I think that can make a huge, huge difference. And of course, the final thing I'd say is get yourself a tool or a technique that's going to help you. And many people are turning to tools and techniques that, unfortunately, while they might be brilliant, they're not the things that can actually heal you. So, for example, meditation. Meditation is wonderful. But if you're suffering from anxiety, for example, meditation is not going to help you. You might find that meditating an hour a day allows you to keep sane, but you have to keep meditating an hour a day every day. And if you don't, then you suddenly lose that calmness that you feel. Instead, find tools that actually heal you and get rid of the stuff that's causing the anxiety. Then you don't need to do, let's say, the meditation, for example, 1 hour a day. So head trash clearance, for example, is brilliant at that. It will get rid of the fear, get rid of the anxiety. So it's no longer there. Once it's not there anymore, you haven't got to manage it. You haven't got to keep hold of it or deal with it, or, whatever it is, you mask over it, plaster over it, whatever is going on. It's much easier to go through life having ditched stuff that's stressing you out than carrying it on your back and, managing it. When people come to me and they say, I just need help managing my anxiety, I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not the person to help you, because I'm not interested in helping you to manage your anxiety. I want to help you to get rid of it. so that you don't have it anymore. And that can really be unsettling for people, that like, oh, well, because they don't fundamentally believe that they can get rid of it. They feel they've just got to have this all the time. And that simply is not true. So I think when we go into the healing, when we go into a phase of personal development, we have to be very open and to change, and open that transformation, rapid, incredible transformation can happen. Because if we're not open to that, then we are going to limit what's possible for ourselves. So I think it's about maybe just opening the blinders and being open to incredible, magical change in your life. Because if you are, then that is also an important step to take.
Yeah, and I think it's really true what you said about a lot of people just masking, okay, let me just deal with this. How do I deal with this? But yeah, no, you can get rid of it. It can be totally clear of it, which I think a lot of people can't even imagine. So it's nice to know that's possible.
Yeah. I mean, I would definitely urge you, if there's anything that anybody wants to get rid of, is to consider the possibility that it can be. Like I remember when I used to have a fear of injections. I had such a bad fear of injections that every time I went to the doctors, well, I wouldn't be able to come out on my own. I'd always got carried out. In fact, when I was a child and I go to see my family in Paris, I had so many memories of my grandmother hanging me upside down from the ankles, feeding me croissants in the doctor's waiting room because I'd passed out yet again at a blood test. And I managed to get rid of that in under 5 minutes on my own using head trash clearance when I was waiting at my first midwife appointment. And I never imagined for a minute that this really bad phobia that had affected me my whole life since I was a child, I was able to banish it in less than 5 minutes. And since then, I've had acupuncture, loads of needles in my body once, and absolutely fine. I'm just absolutely fine with needles. And I never would have imagined that kind of rapid change of something that had affected me so deeply and for such a long time could be gotten rid of in less than 5 minutes. And so that once we open ourselves to the idea of the possibility of that, just imagine what else could change in your life as well at that kind of level.
And often we're speaking to creatives on this podcast, and so many artists, so many creatives face imposter syndrome. What do you have to say about that? Is that something that can be cured as well? Like, what are some techniques you offer for that? Because so many people just have these fears like, I'm not good enough. I shouldn't be doing this. Who am I to say anything about this or do this? What do you say to them?
Well, that is such a common thing. And I work with that as well with my business clients so many times. And the thing about the not good enough situation is that a lot of the times we have that phrase that runs around in our head and we don't finish it. And it would be really good to finish it, because the reason why that phrase causes so many problems is that we don't finish it. So, for example, if you said to me, look, Lex, you're just not good enough to like play in tennis Wimbledon finals. I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm totally fine with that because I'm really rubbish at tennis and I have no desire to play in Wimbledon finals. So there are certain things that I am not good enough at, and I am okay with that. And there are other things that I'm working at, I'm developing myself at. And it's also okay for me to be working on myself and getting better at something. And so it's important to recognize that whenever there's something that you feel you're not good enough, first of all, just finish the sentence, because already that forces you to become quite specific about what it is that you mean. And then once you've forced yourself to come up with some words around this, you start to realize that, well, actually, this doesn't mean that much, and I can actually do stuff. I am good at things, and I am good enough to do this because guess what? I've been doing it for 5 years, 10 years, whatever. And that can be a really important distinction that you can make at the beginning. The next part of that really is to try and uncover, like, what pond are you trying to play in that means that you're not good enough in that pond? Like, what is it that is going on here that means that you feel that? And then what can you do about it so that you do feel good enough? Maybe you need to remind yourself that maybe, let's say you have your own business and you're like, well, I've only just launched my business and I'm just not good enough at this. I'm a new person in the whole business thing. But maybe you've been doing this skill that you're trading, that you're selling into your services, and you've been doing it in your job for 10 years. So actually you are good enough because you're really good at it in the context of a company. But now you happen to be doing it in the context of your business. So why does that suddenly mean that you're now not good enough? You absolutely are good enough because you've been doing it. So we need to be gentle with ourselves, but also start getting quite specific about what we mean when we say, I'm not good enough, because oftentimes we're not taking the time to get specific about what that means. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. And like you said, just finishing that sentence, like, I'm not good enough because, like, what stories are we telling ourselves? And maybe once you say those stories out loud, it starts to become clear that, okay, you're just self-sabotaging.
Yeah, yeah. And it's really important to do that because this can be a huge source of sabotage for people. And there's no need for it to be there. But also the thing about the not good enough story is there's likely to be some unhealed trauma going on there that's making you feel that way. So while it might be, simple to go, well, just finish the sentence. Yes, that's just part of it. But it is also worth uncovering what is going on, what's beneath the surface there, and what could be some of the hidden wounds that you have that are lurking beneath the surface that are leading you to believe this. And it might be that some of these hidden wounds are not even related. Oftentimes when we talk about trauma, I think a lot of people think about big T trauma. I mean, trauma with a capital T. But often there are so many micro traumas. And what are micro traumas? These little events that have happened many times in your life that you can't probably even remember a single one of them. But together, they do represent a theme that maybe has been a recurring pattern for you. So, for example, let's say, maybe at school you got teased once, or maybe you got teased 20 times. And maybe one of those occasions you can't really remember, but you've got a vague recollection that you got teased. And so you've now got micro trauma about maybe bullying or being rejected or being accused of not being good enough, whatever that wound is for you. And that is now a wound, even though there wasn't this huge, big drama where you were massively rejected in front of loads of people. And, you went on Pop Idol and suddenly you got kicked off stage and it was just a complete sham and a shame. It doesn't have to be these big dramatic moments. These small moments that maybe you don't even remember have just accumulated and they've set your stories up. They've set your beliefs up. They're feeding your fears. And so healing those kind of wounds can really have a massive, massive shift and dramatic effect on how you feel. And I've been witnessing that a lot with my business clients, especially the creative ones that, creatives tend to have a lot of that stuff going on, probably because we're sensitive, probably because we are so creative. It's the thing that makes us creative that also makes us sensitive to this stuff. And when you do uncover those hidden wounds and identify what they are and then heal them, wow, that could be quite transformational to witness, because suddenly you realize that actually it doesn't matter if I'm not good enough because I'm really good at this thing. And then you start to own it. And the minute you can start to own it, people get attracted to the fact that you are owning who you are. And that is quite magnetic. And I think for creatives, that is something that can really create quite an up level in their business, in their endeavors, when they start owning their creative genius.
And I think that's great advice. Like you said, it's magnetic when people see you're comfortable in what you're doing, comfortable in your own skin. That's huge because everybody wants that. We all have our little micro traumas, our big traumas, like you said, and we want to figure out, how did that person do that? How are they so happy? Just being them. Like, that's so big.
Yeah. And I think also just being honest about, if you're not good enough at something, own it, talk about it. Do a Facebook Live about it. I don't know, be vulnerable, be open, share your journey. Share, this is a new thing for me. I'm trying it out. What do you think? I'd love some feedback. The thing that's stopping people doing things like that are the fear of looking silly, fear of not being taken seriously for what they're doing. There are other fears that are lurking that are preventing them from maybe showing up in their vulnerability and their honesty and their integrity and authenticity. Being authentic about who you are and where your genius truly lies, that's not easy for everybody. And that's packed with fears as well. So the minute you start opening up to people and sharing, look, this is what I do, this is how I do it, but I'm trying this new thing out, so I think it'd be really good for my work to do X, Y, Z. What do you think? And then bring people along on that journey, and they invite the feedback, to make your not good enough thing, turn that into a strength. There's some great brands that turn their weaknesses into strengths. So if you feel that your aspects of yourself that aren't good enough, well, see if you can flip the script and really make that a talking point and own it. It's because we kind of hide behind our weaknesses and we're ashamed and embarrassed about them that they've got so much power over us. But the minute we kind of own them and go, yeah, you know what, I'm really bad at this. Who else is really bad at this? Hey, well, let's all be bad at this together. But you know what I'm really good at is that. Owning this stuff, maybe doing it with a little smile, tongue in cheek, whatever your personal style is, there are ways of incorporating your weakness, the bits that you're not quite good enough at yet, to really transform how your creative endeavors are going.
I think that's really great advice. And another common thing that comes up for creatives is burnout. I mean, anybody running their own business, anyone who's sensitive. What are some techniques you offer for like avoiding burnout?
Well, I'm afraid the technique I offer is always the same. So it's going to be using head trash clearance. It just means working on different aspects of yourself. So what is it that you're doing that is leading to burnout? Maybe it's because you're working the long hours because you've got a people pleaser in you that you haven't healed. And so your people pleaser is, oh my goodness, I mustn't let these people down. I mustn't disappoint them. I must be there for them. I can't possibly say no to yet another invite or yet another whatever. And so even just taming your inner people pleaser can start preventing burnout, for example, because you start putting boundaries in. A lot of burnout comes about because you haven't got these firm boundaries in place. So you're not able to say no. You're not able to say, hey, you know what? I need to carve out this space for myself. I'm not going to agree to this. I'm going to make sure that I put some time aside for my self-care, my exercise, my walk in nature, whatever it is that you need for you, because those are the things that are going to prevent you from burning out. But while you've got an inner people pleaser that's ruling the show, you haven't got a hope at all of being able to control that stuff, because there's a part of you that keeps saying yes to everything and agreeing to everything and not protecting your own space and your own boundaries. So I think it's about really recognizing what about you is leading to the burnout. What are you doing that is leading to this? How can you start putting in some boundaries or some restrictions or some carving out space for yourself to give yourself the time that you need so that you can have time off? And, you know, a lot of people worry about being lazy or being perceived as lazy or relaxing. So many people find that really hard to relax. They sabotage their own ability to relax because they can't sit still. There's guilt. They think they should be doing something. And especially when you have your own business, you're like, well, I need to be doing something. I can't switch off. I must check emails. I must go on socials, whatever it is. There's always this thing that keeps you always present. And it's about saying no to that, saying no to yourself more than anything, not always other people, but yourself, and just being very disciplined about where you're giving yourself the time that you need. And when you give yourself enough time off between your work bursts, actually, when you do your work, you can be a lot more focused, probably a lot more creative, and really get much better work done if you make sure that you do have that time to yourself. So the first thing I'd say is ask yourself, what am I doing about, what is it that I'm doing that's leading to burnout, and what can I do about that? And doing it before you actually burn out. Like, don't wait until you've burnt out before you start addressing this stuff. Try and get ahead of the game here so that you don't ever burn out.
Yeah, that's the hard part, right? Is like, it's not till you're burnt out that you're like, oh, I have a problem.
Yeah.
How did I get here? And how do you feel about the internet and social media when it comes to the trauma and things like that? Do you think that this internet culture, social media culture has made things worse for people? Or do you think it's a good thing? Like, what are your feelings about social media and when it comes to healing and things like that?
I think it's mixed. There are obviously lots of, there are people that can be incredibly unpleasant and very mean, and when they're hiding behind a keyboard. And so it can be very difficult for people to come out and be very open and share what they're doing and be visible in their business because they're worried about maybe offending somebody. A random stranger from Illinois might suddenly pile in and be rude, horrible at them. And so they hold back because they don't want that to happen. So I think there are dark sides to the web and there are dark sides of social media, but it also is fantastic because it enables you to connect with other people online that also suffer with what you're suffering with. So with my work around tokophobia, for example, the women that suffer from tokophobia feel incredibly isolated. Often they've never heard that this is a thing, but the online space enables them to connect with other women that are feeling just as they are and to connect and not feel so alone. And that applies to all sorts of mental health struggles that people have. You can connect with people and also do that in an anonymous fashion, which means that you can really open up, feel supported, and nobody even has to know where you live, what your face is, or anything like that. So you can really be honest and get some fantastic support that you probably wouldn't necessarily get in your local community. So I think it's about a balance, really. It's really important to have face-to-face communication. It's really important to get together in physical groups to be able to connect and have, eyeball each other and smell the coffee in the same room as someone else. But I think those online spaces also create opportunities for people to connect and get the support that they might not be able to get in their local community because of maybe the nature of what it is that they're struggling with. And they don't feel the ability to maybe come out and share that because they might be embarrassed about it, or they don't want family members or friends to find out about it. And so there's two sides to everything, isn't there? So I think it's about treading carefully with social media. And if you don't want to share stuff that might bring on comments, don't. But again, back to what I said at the beginning, don't take stuff like that personally. I get loads of people online criticizing, trolling me and all that stuff. And it used to really affect me a lot at the beginning. But I realized that they've got nothing better to do. It says more about them than me. I've got to stop taking that personally, because they don't mean it about me particularly. They're just reacting to something I've said. And maybe it's because it's hit something deep within them and they're just lashing out and they don't realize what they're doing. So acting with a little bit of compassion when you get treated like that sometimes can really help you.
Yeah, I completely agree. We can all know that misery loves company, and also people's reactions to your work is a reflection of them and not your work. I mean, because like you said, it can just hit a pain point or something and they're like projecting back to you based on what you've given them. So it's always interesting to just be like, okay, take a step back. This does not define me. This is a them thing. And like you said, show them some compassion because they might be really struggling.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lack of compassion I think we have right now. There's very easy for people are judging very easily. And I think it's a sign of, the mental health crisis that we're in. There's a lot of people that are in a lot of hurt right now. And so they go online and they suddenly realize that there are people maybe more successful than them, and they feel it accentuates maybe what they're feeling. So it's much easier for them to just have a dig everywhere and go out on the attack. And that's just a sad feature of the times that we're in. But it doesn't mean that you can't engage with that. It doesn't mean you can't engage online. You just need to maybe think about, well, what are your boundaries? If somebody does treat you like that online, well, just block them. You don't need to spend any time thinking about it. Just block, because you don't need that kind of energy in your life. Especially as a creative where you want to maybe reach a big audience or you want to have an impact with your work. Ask yourself, do you want to allow this random stranger from Illinois to have an impact on you getting your work out in the world and having an impact? No. That person shouldn't have that kind of power over you. So think about where you're handing over your power and take it back so that you can carry on and do the awesome work that you're here to do, and not allow random strangers to have an effect on you like that.
I couldn't agree more. I think that's great advice. And where can people connect with you online and learn more about your courses? Talk a little bit about your courses and how people can try them out and work with you.
Well, if they want to have some head trash support help, then come to clearyourheadtrash.com. And then I've got my self-healing memberships. If you want to come along and try using head trash clearance, tackle anything that you want, then we have monthly calls so you can get the support that you need. And then you can start achieving the changes that I've been hinting at. And also there, if you want to work privately with me, then there's information on the website there. And if you have birth fears, then my sister site, which is fearfreechildbirth.com, and I've got a podcast on that too, for those suffering with tokophobia, where I've got specific tokophobia programs. But depending on what your head trash is, I've got a site for whether it's more general or birth related.
We will share all of that in the show notes too. And I think that's a great name for it, head trash. That's exactly what it is, right? It's just trash we need to take out.
Yeah, no need to get precious about it. We've all got it. Nothing to be embarrassed about. We just need to take it out. Nobody gets embarrassed about their rubbish bins at home. There's no reason to get embarrassed about the head trash in your head.
Oh, that's great advice. And thank you so much. I can't wait to see what you'll do next.
Thank you for the invite and coming on your show. It's been fab.
Thanks so much for tuning in to La Vie Creative. You can find more information on MissParisPhoto.com. And if you enjoyed this show, please feel free to share and spread the word for all my creative guests. We have the power to help them to keep doing what they love. See you next time.